Hello, and welcome to Cult Storytime. Today I wanted to talk about how they got you to join and how they got you to stay. Because that's a question that I get a lot as well. It's just what, like, first of all, how does anyone want to join this? And secondly, how do they get you to stay? And I think that, especially in the beginning, because this was started in 1969, and a few years later, everyone left the U.S. and started going to third world countries, and that's when they had this huge boom of membership of people joining, and they had a very structured or ritualistic way that they would get you to join and kind of absorb you into the cult. And I just want to kind of explain that. And first of all, I think it's very easy when you look back at what this cult did and what it was. When you have all of the material and 40 years of context and you look at it, you can be like, this is crap. This is like obviously a terrible thing. Why would anybody join? But I think that when you're in any situation, obviously it's hard to see the things that you don't know how to see, or things that don't yet exist. But I want to talk about how they control you, and it's fear and shame, like it is with any abusive relationship. So the way that they would recruit people, they would catfish you, by the way. One of their methods of recruitment was Bible study. They have other like ridiculous ones that I'll talk about later, but I'm going to talk about the Bible study one first because I'm going to ease y'all in. So they would go out to like beaches or highly populated places with like a guitar, and they would be super friendly. They were, always smiling, and they would make friends and then invite people back to a Bible study or invite people back to a barbecue. And this was 100% of what they did. So it's not like, oh, every weekend they would be out. No, every day they would go out to a populated area and do this. And when you're in a third world country, it's a third world country. So a lot of the members who ended up joining, so just people first, they lived in poverty. So when you are living in poverty, for example, say you're in this village with no prospects, you live in poverty, you've only known poverty your whole life. And then one day you're like walking the boardwalk, and then there's a group of like, 6 foreigners. And at that time, I don't think that you think, oh, these foreigners are just like poor travelers. At that time, being in the 70s, and I don't know, this is speculation, a lot of people assumed that they were there on business, because why else would you be there? So you meet this group of foreigners, you think that they're successful, and they invite you back, and they're like, hey, we're missionaries, we're serving the Lord, come back for Bible study and dinner. So being a person in poverty, you're going to get a free meal. So you go back with these people and you have fun times, you have dinner, you're like, great. And they're like, hey, stay the night. Like, just chill. So you end up doing that a lot, and your options are that or poverty. So this starts looking more and more like the better option. And once you get to the point that you're like, hey, I want to join, because they had this whole formula of like, bring somebody in, show them the word, get them to believe these few verses, feed them, clothe them, be nice to them, like provide like human contact, which we all need. And so they would be provided, they would basically be love bombed. And once they decided, hey, I want to join, then they'd be like, great, thank you. They would have you, there was like this whole ritual. And what would happen is some of the members of the group would take you, like the new recruit, they called you a babe because you were a babe in the Lord. So they would take you to your family's house. And once you got to your family's house, you would stand there either with the members, they would come inside with you, or they would stand outside and wait. You would curse out your family. You would tell them that you didn't want to have any contact with them, and that you now had a new family. You were replacing them with the family of the Lord, which were either the people standing there with you or the people outside. And they would tell you to curse out your family. They would tell you that you could give your family the option of also joining the Lord's army, or your family was now an enemy, and you would tell your family that. You would tell your family that they were now an enemy, and you were no longer interested in the familial relationship that you had, and you now were part of the Lord's family. And you would basically be like, screw you to your family. And then once you did that, then you would go back to the commune. And very shortly after that, the cult will get you out of the country. Because at this point, they had gone into all the world. So there were communes dotted all over the country. And all over the world. So they would take you, say you joined in Vietnam, and you were like in poverty in Vietnam and you found this and you went through the whole ritual and you joined. Great. Within, sometimes it was the next day, sometimes it was like a week later, or within the month, definitely, they would put you on a plane and they would get you maybe to Thailand, maybe to Japan, maybe to the Philippines, but they would get you out of the country. So now you are in a foreign country, it's the 70s, you have no way to contact your family, and even if you did, what are you going to say? Because the last time you talked to them, you cursed them out and told them to go screw themselves. So um, it was a very streamlined kind of envelopment of a person into this cult. And then you were also not allowed to contact your family. And they would keep track of that because, like, you're in a commune. There are 40 people. You're not allowed to leave, by the way. So if you ever did want to send mail, sometimes they would go through your mail. You would have to leave it open and they would read the letter before you sent it. But you were also not supposed to be contacting your family. There's a verse in the Bible, Matthew 10:36, that says, "A man's enemies will be they of his own household." So basically, your enemies are going to be your family. And they harped on that. And they would always, there were a couple of families who actually tried, like parents who cared, who actually tried to get the authorities to try and get their kids out. And there were very few instances. I think there were like 3 or 4 instances of families doing this, and they were usually American families with resource to be able to go get their kid out of this cult overseas. Um, and they would fight them. They would take this person, rename them, get them into the commune system, and then just try and keep them from their family. And then they would, to the commune, send out letters and being like, look, this is what happens. And, you know, your family hates you. Your family is serving Satan. And this is why it's really important to not be in touch with your family. So people would disappear into this commune system. And they would also rename everybody. So say your name was, I don't know, oh my gosh, I'm going to come up with something super generic. Say your name was Sally Jones. Damn it. I can't be more creative than that. And then you would join the cult and they would rename you Patience. And you wouldn't tell anybody that your name was Sally Jones. You would be Patience from now on. So you would go through the commune system as Patience. So even if I knew you and I'm out walking one day outside of the commune for some reason and I run into your parents who are looking for you and they're like, do you know Sally Jones? No, because I don't know your name. I know you as Patience, so I wouldn't be able to help anyway. So it was this whole network of um, being able to capture a person, make them disappear into a system, and keep them from the real world. And that's kind of how they did it. It was really crazy. And I think the important thing to note is that this is not a new thing. This is just an abuse pattern. They take whoever the oppressor is, they want to dismantle the structures that you have in your life for support, and they want you to dismantle them so that you start ending up leaning on them for support. Because it's not like if somebody removes your family, if they remove you from your family, it's not that you no longer need the support of your family. It's that they unplug your attachment with your family and they're trying to plug it into themselves. So the more you dismantle the structures that you have of support in your life, you still need to attach that. And they just want you to attach it to them so that you end up completely dependent on them for whatever it is. And the more you depend on them, the more abusive they get to be. So that is kind of a little explanation of how you could kind of make a decision, a split-second decision, in a weak moment in your life, and then they could just like snatch you out of your whole life and put you through this system that's really, really terrifying, very scary, and you could be in it for much longer than you anticipated. So I think it's just really important for you to be really aware of where you are attached in life, and understand that you are allowed to have healthy attachments, that you should have multiple sources of structure in your life. So your job, your family life, your joy, your health, all of that should be plugged in somewhere. And the more it's plugged into the world and the less it is coming from one person, I think the healthier or more involved of a worldview you get, and the wider your perspective, the more easily you will be able to see things as they are. So my advice is just to look at where your structures are and look at your attachments and make sure that they are healthy attachments, and be watchful of anyone who tries to come in and dismantle any of your support structures. So that is my story for today, and I will see you tomorrow.